Good morning, Tina.
Good morning, Christian.
I
Lovely to
was
be here.
absolutely. I was very much looking forward to having this conversation with you. I mean, we know each other for quite a while now, and I'm very curious to speak with you today about the topic that we decided, which is going to be how sustainability has fallen out of favor and how boards should be responding to this. Your background is extremely interesting in speaking with you about this topic. Before we're starting with the conversation, I'm going to introduce you to the audience of my sustainability leadership talks. So, Tina, you have studied at the University of Oxford and the London Business School, and then you worked your way up the ranks for a bit more than 25 years in the financial services industry. You then stepped out of the line functions and took over assignments as strategic advisor and board member for European listed and private equity-led American companies in the utilities, mining, insurance, and shipping industry. Additionally, you are acting as strategic advisor for Cambridge University's Center of Climate Engagement. Tina, after your impressive career in financial services, what ignited the spark of your sustainability passion?
First of all, I've always enjoyed our conversations, Christian, and I think they go back now, a good 3 years, and these topics are not new in our discussions. To me, sustainability, I didn't go into sustainability in the same way that I'm not getting out of sustainability. What sparked my curiosity was obviously events in my career. I had the first experience of a governance failure in one of the big supply chain companies that I was working for. Went from 9.5 billion to a few hundred million on account of governance issues. Another bank that I was working for, around the financial crisis again, what was not supposed to be such a big loss ended up being a big loss because of governance issues, and that got me curious. What's happening? What are people doing? What are people checking? And how are they stress testing business lines, risks, assumptions, etc.? Now, as far as climate is concerned, I've been active in climate for the longest time, since 2009. I found myself in India, advising the state of Maharashtra in India on solar tariffs. And all the commodity investments that I made were bank financed, and always environmental impact was part of the assessment of a transaction. And so sustainability to me was just the way that sustainability came to fashion was just something just came along in my career, if you will.
Yeah.
And the same way that sustainability now is being challenged in all sorts of from all sorts of directions, that's not affecting me either, because all to me, as we've talked about for the longest time, what sustainability is all about is sustaining the long-term performance of a company or medium-term performance of a company. And there is no way that the physical footprint, that the people investment, or the governance robustness cannot be part of a sustained financial performance in an organization.
Yeah. I really like
Answer
that
to your
about
question. Long answer to your question, but that's
perfectly
my
fine.
positioning.
That helps the audience to understand where you're coming from and what your view is. And I really appreciate that persistence that you have, and this, let's say, pragmatic view on the things, which is really also business driven and not ideological or dogmatic driven, right? So you are saying that compliance has distracted boards from commercial priorities. What brought you to this view?
You see it time and again, when you get into sustainability committees or you speak to sustainability peers. Oh, these are the requirements of the regulator. This is what we have to do. This is the checklist, etc., etc. And I'm very anaphylactic to the box-ticking expression, let alone the practice of. So I'll withdraw it from our conversation today. But what I found curious all along, and obviously I'm a policy advisor, as you know, to regulators. Where were they coming from? no one sat back to understand from the commercial world, or very few people sat back from the commercial world to understand where is the regulator coming from. Are they there? Are they waking up in the morning so excited to just regulate me out of my business, or are they trying to safeguard something here?
Yeah.
And I have spent a lot of time with the regulators to understand where they're coming from. And I think that's really the prism of with which boards have to start engaging, or companies have to start engaging with sustainability, or understanding their situation in sustainability, and what are the strategic sensitivities and strategic levers that they should be using as a result of this.
Mm-hmm.
So now you will see, as things are accelerating, for instance, energy security. You cannot do without it. I mean, Europe is getting severely challenged because of the lack of access to affordable energy. So security is a very important thing. Another thing is business interruption. I mean, you see that the Allianz Risk Barometer, which is a beautiful kind of check for companies in all sectors. What are the biggest risks out there on an annual basis? And you see at least 6 of them are climate related. So if beyond any compliance, look at the sensitivities, vulnerabilities, and obviously then the flip side naturally would be opportunities of the organization, and then move along with those. And naturally then, any requirements from any regulator will be answered in the course of you conducting your business the way you should be.
Excellent. I really love that. With that said, how can boards refocus their attention safeguarding supply chain resilience and energy security, what you also just mentioned?
Exactly right. And the very first thing that any board should be doing is look at its production site, physical or virtual, and say, what are my biggest risks? What are my biggest opportunities? And then naturally, it has to tie in the strategy with the capital allocation, with all the operational efficiency initiatives, and check against plan. What am I doing? What am I missing? How are things changing in any structural way? And this should be a very, very dynamic exercise. So away from all the CSRDs and all these beautiful kind of things that we were talking about, we're talking about business planning, business safeguarding, and business robustness.
Yeah. And that's for this, you need data, right? Without data, you cannot take
Precisely. And that's where the CSRDs of this world came from, the data. Show me the data. On the basis of the data, you should be making these decisions. And then you will see when you go through any reporting kind of framework, is this relevant for me? Perfect. Is this something that I hadn't thought is relevant, but actually it is? Beautiful. Not relevant for me? Park it. And then any sustainability, going back to the board, any sustainability discussion, any sustainability plan, any sustainability report has to respect exactly these boundaries. And all your stakeholders will respect you for it. And you have to explain very clearly what you're doing and why. And that's where you naturally said data comes very handy there. I mean, it's the credibility actually that builds up your proposition, and then explain and explain and explain until people understand.
Yeah, very good. In your view, Tina, what's the board's role in climate materiality assessments?
Scenario planning, scenario analysis. I mean, you see time and again, you have the scenario planning in risk has always had a relatively linear approach to things. You stress a specific factor and then you move on, other things being equal. Well, that's exactly the point here. Other things are continuously not equal. They're continuously unequal. And then we're talking about shocks in the system. And then we're talking about potential responses in the system. I mean, you've seen time and again how central banks and governments have responded to serious shocks that we've had in the last 5 years alone. You see that now their ammunition is not, I mean, it's been hard used already. And therefore, in your scenario planning, you have to be bold, you have to be transversal, and you have to be asymmetric. These are things that should be coming to the risk committee, and naturally they would be spilling over into the sustainability committee, and then naturally they will get into the audit committee as far as your asset viability is concerned, so on and so forth. So that scenario planning then, and what boards should be doing, is really a transversal exercise across the different functions and different committees, so that we arrive as a company, whichever sector that is, at a robust look of what this looks like for us. Again, vulnerabilities and naturally sensitivities, and then opportunities.
Yeah.
Banks have been used to that. I mean, banks have the
Absolutely.
blueprint on that. Now, what banks have the opportunity to do is take it one step further and go into that unknown of transversality, and that the unknown of uneven shocks.
I really like this, Tina, and especially the focus that you always place also on resilience. I think resilience is a quite important aspect for you when you think about organizations and the performance of organizations. How should boards then approach transition planning with resilience in mind, in your view?
Precisely. CapEx, OpEx. CapEx, OpEx, incentives. I mean, these are the three things that any board should be solving for. Pledges. I mean, no one plans out realistically further than 5 to 7 years ahead. And first of all, no one has the feasibility for it. So 2050, fine. 2030 matters, and that's part of your business plan now. So what's your CapEx? What's your OpEx? And show me what you've done versus your plans. Performance versus plans. These are the three things. Now, incentives, naturally, they matter to the extent that if climate is material to your business, you don't introduce climate or in the environment or any social aspects in an environment where they don't belong. Otherwise, you're cluttering the board, you're diluting attention, and you're losing your credibility. You will not have a voice for much longer. So always from materiality, and then move down to the specifics within each strand of E, S, and G. And I know that's a bad word, but I mean, that's what we're talking about.
You're touching a very interesting point, which leads me to the following question. I mean, you just spoke about pledges, and when we see how long boards are in their roles, CEOs, other C-level members are in their roles, then as you just said, it's usually rather short to medium oriented, right? And also incentivized. So when you speak about pledges, would it make sense then, in your view, to communicate these pledges externally, or maybe have them rather communicated internally and work on them maybe more in silence in order to also be able to achieve them?
Immaterial to me. Either
Okay.
strategy works depending on your audience, and naturally a few businesses have audiences right now that are very, very challenging, totally understood. We're solving for resilience here. We're solving for business resilience. Whatever it takes for you to do what you have to do in order to be sustained financially in the future, you go ahead and do it.
Yeah. So that might also lead to a different evaluation of C-level performance, right? So
Absolutely.
not just focusing on what has been achieved over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or maybe what's going to be achieved in the next quarter, but rather building an organization that is future-proof.
But that's what it's all about. That's exactly what it's all about. And because I'm a remuneration director as well, you see that your remuneration plans look ahead 3 to 5 years, and you have rolling performance forecast versus performance, rather performance versus forecast, etc., etc. So remuneration gives you that tool, if you will, to orient the company towards the future. And the fact that, I mean, now you have record CEO, reshuffling, etc., etc. But that's, again, that should not detract the board from giving the guidance that it has to give for the resilience of the business that it has to achieve.
Okay. When we take a look at regulated industries, how can boards move beyond ESG window dressing there?
Talk to the regulator, my goodness. I mean, it's unbelievable when you sit with a regulator. to understand how the conversation might so much not be there, and that's a waste. They're trying to resolve things like you're trying to resolve things. The regulator has so many data points, and they can see through credibility. They can understand credibility when it's there, and they can see through it when it's not there. So the best strategy is engage. And by engaging, you give the data, you ask the questions, and you defend your positions so that you explain to the regulator, why am I doing this? Why am I choosing not to do this? And you will see that in time, you will be building what we call that regulatory equity. And that regulatory equity will play in your favor.
Yeah.
And then, all these window dressings and all these other things, first of all, they cost a lot of money in an organization. Putting things in place that are not going to work. Don't do that. First of all, people don't have the money as much to do that. I mean, you see cost cutting everywhere. But then detraction, trust erosion, you name it. I would minimize as much of this as possible and move into, again, robustness, materiality, and engage the regulator on that basis alone.
Yeah. You keep on saying this, and
I'm
then
very consistent. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's exactly
Answering
the
in
thing.
the same way probably every single question you're asking me. But to me, in my experience, and I've done many industries. I've done banking, I've done insurance, I've done shipping, I've done obviously utilities and mining. Same consistent messaging. So that's my experience, and that's what I want to share with you today.
Excellent. When you speak about that engagement with regulators, how can that meaningful engagement look like?
You have centers of regulatory engagement, regulatory affairs. The biggest mistake the biggest money you can leave on the table, let's put it that way, is to use these people as lobbyists. Naturally, you will have your conversations. Naturally, some of your interests will detract from the interest of the policy that the regulators are putting in. But the regulators time and again say, I want a conversation with you. And when you're talking to the regulator, you say one thing, and then you go to the Ministry for the Economy or some other ministry, and you say something else. Again, know that these people talk to each other as well. So you have a consistency and a reputational thing to manage here. So the best way to do this, instead of putting lobbyists in these divisions, is to put people that understand governance very deeply, understand the sensitivities of organization very, very deeply, and defend the organization from that basis, not from the basis of, I've been told this is my cheat sheet, let me tell you what it is, because they'll say, this is not working, this is not flowing, go back and do what I told you. And then you're getting into that loop that is unhelpful and unproductive for everyone.
Okay. In line with what you just said, maybe a shift of our view on the organization going into the direction of employees. So from your point of view, why is workforce retention a core ESG issue today?
So I'll step back for a second and talk about the S part of ESG, or the S part of sustainability. To say that, again, we cluttered S with so many things. Some of them were more material than others. And in many companies, a lot of the material things were kind of dampened down. And that's a big mistake. No matter how automated your business is, there is no way that the human function or the human intervention is not going to be material. None. No way. Okay. Even, the cars that are, driving themselves these days, someone is doing all the necessary software and all the necessary XYZs that need to be, that need to take place there. There is no way then that in an S strategy or sustainability strategy, your employee resilience, health isn't there front and center. None. Now, retention is a natural byproduct of how people feel happy in your organization. And that's a very practical health check for you, and especially retention among the talent that you've identified as being the key talent to lead through the succession of the organization. So there you need to be granular, and you really need to look at the data and not, oh my goodness, these poor employee scores that's, again, tick, tick, tick on a Friday afternoon, and then you think you are happy, but in fact, lots of things are happening in the organization. Look through language analysis. What is the sentiment behind the language analysis? And then identify the key issues that are being raised, and you will see them consistently raised again and again and again. And come back with a business plan that will address things that you think you can address, and tell them the things that you cannot address now or you cannot address at all. So you have to be very consistent, you have to be business transparent, and you have to follow through. But in all cases, you have to approach it as a business, and you have to come back with a business plan there.
It's very much in line with my observations. I mean, you know that I'm in the industry for the last 20 years. So I do also see a shift here in the behavior of candidates, especially also top level senior candidates, taking more, let's say, brave decisions in order to part ways with their organizations if things related to ESG in a broader context are not matching their own value system, for example. So the situation that I've seen at the beginning of my career was still maybe more focusing on own career development, on maybe increasing power status, income levels, and stuff like that. And today I see it more being decisions being taken on the own value set, if that's still resonating with what the company and the management, top level management of a company is doing or not. And then rather taking also a decision to leave the organization, even without having a new job, if that's no longer the case.
I think you're touching on and obviously, Christian, you would be in the absolute position to gauge exactly these trends. But I think what we're witnessing here is something that has evaded potentially boards for a while now, and that's level of trust. And level of trust in all its pairs, whether that is top to bottom, middle, top, bottom, internally, externally, with your customers. And then my question is, how much analysis are you doing that in that area? How much are you tracking things? I mean, you have net promoter scores. Again, same as nameplate employee engagements. They don't give you the granularity of what it is you should be looking for. And there is no way, none, that you can have trust eroding and profits going up. You cannot have that divergence for long.
Yeah.
So again, in the context of what we're talking about today, which is sustained financial performance, you need trust to come back in the organization, within the organization, and between the organization and the its customers. And you'll see the reports out there. I mean, PwC annual reports, abysmal gaps. You'll see in the Edelman Trust reports, things getting into, what did they call it? Grievance, not just divergence, but so consistent divergence to the point of grievance. This is coming back to you in your profit margins, in your cost base, in everything. So yes, trust and naturally employee development, resilience, adaptability. These are things that should be front and center in a sustainability committee, naturally in a nominations committee, because they are talent committees at this stage. And any other risk committee, wherever, there are very human-centric businesses like services or other key decisions. And you have to monitor it in different aspects of the board workings and coordinate it to make sure that the board commits some results to this.
Yeah. Very, very good point. Losing trust, big topic externally as well as internally. We've seen a lot of organizations over the past years. We could mention Volkswagen here with the diesel scandal. We could also take a look at Tesla with what Elon Musk did in his role. People might have different views on it, but in the end, it leads also to losing trust in the individual, and then of course also in the organization. So what do you think is necessary also from a board and top executive perspective to regain lost trust?
Do the data and understand where you're faltering. Language analysis, where are you faltering? Customer complaints. Where are you? What's the consistent feedback there? Internally, with your engagement or whatever touch points you have, what is the consistent feedback here? And then please don't roll out mega plans that then you take back a year and a half ago later because you can't support them. What you really need to do is commit small to where you can actually deliver and build it out from there, because trust has a big momentum element to it. Naturally, trust is reciprocity, and trust is consistency. So whatever you choose to do, and it has to be material. I mean, if it's not going to be material, people will think, grievance will actually just expand further, right? Be consistent, be material, be reciprocal, and move from one project to the other, to the other, to the other. And then the organization will feel the change that you're making. And the momentum will actually take over as well. These are the things that I've seen. And you know how organizational culture is something that I've written about. And this is an area that whatever the board is doing, whatever senior management is doing, it has a big play into the culture of the organization.
Tina, with your pragmatic and business-oriented view on the things, what would be an advice that you would give to board members, to C-level executives in the time that we're living in right now? So in order to tackle this topic of resilience and maybe preparing the organization to be better set up for the future.
I think you have to spend more time in the future in your board meetings, in your board workings. The more time you spend looking, what are the biggest issues out there? What are the biggest things that could break me? What are the biggest things that I might be missing? This is spend more time in the future and understand what are the biggest vulnerabilities out there for the organization, and then laser focus on those. And the second thing that I would advise is be a bit more coordinated in your board workings. Chairs coming together, sitting together, risk audit, sustainability, REMNOM coming together and saying, okay, these are the big things. Are we being consistent here in the way we're addressing them, so that we come with a singular proposition to the executive? We have worked obviously with the executive, supporting them, and then make sure that whatever is agreed has a very good consistency. In checking against plan, check against plan. If something is not working, fine, adjust it, but you have to be on top of it.
Perfect call to action. Thanks a lot for this wonderful conversation, Tina. I really enjoyed it, like always. So
I
hopefully
always
our
enjoy
audience
talking to you,
also.
Christian. You know that. So delighted to be here again today, and I look forward to continuing our conversations of
Thank
this
you,
line.
Tina. We definitely will. So
Beautiful.
have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Tina.
Bye.